Welcome to a live broadcast, First Minister's Questions Review of the Holyrood Parliament's First Minister's Questions weekly session. And today we have Alex Grant, Norrie Stewart and myself, Stuart Lochhead. And well, it was predictable, First Minister's Questions today. It was all about what the Spanish President said about Scotland joining the EU. What did you make of it, Norrie?
Well, it was entirely predictable. The Spanish President's comments they hurt. You know, they're going to hurt the cause. But the fact of the matter is, Spain's fishing, I think 50% of it is in Scottish wars.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not going to please the Catalans because a lot of them come out of Barcelona.
Oh, I think they come out of Galicia.
He's probably lost the Catalan already anyway, so
and
not so
Barcelona.
bothered.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll see.
What do you think about his president quote?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Well,
Apparently the Prime Minister of Spain referred to Alex Salmond as the President.
he probably can't believe that you can have as much influence as Salmond without being the President, you know? I don't know, it's a weird one. I mean, I go back to Derek Bateman's comment on his blog that he's got it from an official at the EU that they've got a plan. That basically, I mean, at the end of the day, give us a reason. The Spanish have a reason. Scotland goes independent. Scotland's a country, not a region. Does he really believe Scotland's independence will affect Catalonia? The Catalans are going to get their independence.
You can take into account also,
You know,
of course, the absorption of East Germany into the EU.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that was far more of a, should have been far more of an issue than Scotland's independence.
It's nonsense to suggest Scotland won't be. To be fair, we can get to this when we do the score, but Willie Rennie made the most important point. The other two concentrated on he said, she said, mumble grunt. But the truth is, the issue isn't, although they like to portray it as that because it's a good frightener, the issue isn't Scotland being in the EU. That's a given. It's at what price. And what the only thing over which they have any serious opportunity to exert pressure on Salmond is to say, well, what are you going to have to concede to retain your membership? Not that they would express it thus. So that's the frightener they can put out. The rest has got no chance. Forget it. There's enough people, including the ones Salmond quoted, who say the positive stuff as you can find in Spaniards who are likely to say the negative stuff. So can he negotiate a good enough deal? That's the only frightener they've got in it.
Well, I mean,
It's not that strong.
are any of us really that bothered?
EU membership,
You know,
and the speed at which you have it.
Well, I think the business.
We're already losing out.
I know that. Well, his points on that were well made. That Scotland could negotiate. No, his presentation today was impeccable. If I can just throw in where I think we're at, based on last night. Yesterday, I think when we watched the debate, we were all semi-suicidal in one respect about the negativity of the number of people in that chamber.
Well, basically, it was just too weak, too stupid, and too poor.
It was
over and over again.
And what came out to me, as I said to you this morning, was I just cannot understand. Let's look at our worst case scenario. And we vote no, and we'll come back to this in a minute. We vote no, we get shafted. Are all of those unionists going to sit there and say, I have done my best to represent Scotland when we are potentially £8 billion worse off than we otherwise could be? It's just stunning.
Yeah. Well, that's taking into account the £4 billion less that we'll get.
Yeah, against the $4 billion that were due in taxation that we raised.
It becomes $8 billion better
and he
off.
has to keep emphasising that. But let me, if I can just very quickly reiterate what I said to you guys at 4 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep. Well, I couldn't because Nicola was so good last night. I was,
Careful how you put this.
Well, my blood pressure was going through the roof. As far as I'm concerned, the strategy is quite clear. You strongly challenge Better Together on two things. EU membership and currency membership, because on the former, as Simon pointed out today, the ball's in their court and they won't go to the EU because they know they won't like the answer. So that's all he has to say. As far as the currency is concerned, he can continue to assert, and I would hope with the backing, ideally, of several other people, including Nobel Prize-winning economists, for example. I mean, Deutsche Bank came out with a report yesterday saying that it made total sense for Scotland to let's get this right, not to enter into a currency union, which Bugger Lugs last night tried to suggest it was. The continuation of a currency union, which is...
Bear in mind also that neither Cameron nor Osborne have rejected the currency union.
And they won't reject it. See, the two things they can't do, they can't go to the EU because they won't like the answer, and they can't go to the market and say, we are not going to maintain a currency union with Scotland, because the markets would shaft them. So that's the first thing they've got to do. Then the second thing they've got to do is say, what is the consequences of Scotland voting no? And as you saw last night with Carmichael, he couldn't answer it. Now, he used a question from his own backbenches to be able to make that point today. What happens if Scotland votes no? And it's perfectly clear from that. I mean, I was gobsmacked when I read that Commons taxation report, where they basically, in a totally open situation, said, well, the Barnett formula needs to be got rid of, but just put that aside for 1 minute. If you get a weak no vote, we'll screw them. If you get a slightly stronger no vote, we'll screw them a bit less. If you get a yes vote, we'll give them a bit more. If you get a really strong yes vote, oh shit, the ball's on the slate, as they say. And how a unionist group can publish that and allow it to be common knowledge. And
when was it published?
Well, I don't know, because I only saw it yesterday for the first time. I think it's within days. But it's stunning. You know.
All right, summarise what it says then, since you're so exercised by it.
Well, it basically, interestingly enough, it says a couple of things, that there is an inexorable demand for further devolution in Scotland, which has to be dealt with, and it should be dealt with, by the way, before the referendum, because there's a lot of sensible things that need to be discussed, just like the Scottish Government's been saying. You can't leave it to the last minute. It then goes on to analyse the possible consequences of different strengths of vote. And it says if less than 40% vote yes, it doesn't say it like this, but if less than 40% vote yes, well, we give them next to nothing, and we get rid of the Barnett formula. The consequences we know of because of the Halton Commission report, which is part of this whole equation, would mean that there would be a distribution of Scotland's money elsewhere, and Scotland would end up 4 billion worse off. Okay. And they play around with. All right, we might pretend to give.
I think you made your point there. Let's try focus on performances. I know it's a little frustrating at times, but think about it. Based on last night's performances on television, Salmon himself was obviously delighted.
Well, yeah.
He used the notion of Sturgeon as a terrier, as a weapon in debate 2 or 3 times in the course of today's performances.
If anything, went a bit over the top.
She was thoroughly enjoying herself, sat there beside him. Sometimes you just got to watch the other angle shots.
The Sturgeon debate, the first half, was fairly even.
Yeah.
It was all very nice.
Yeah.
But once it came to the questioning, she ripped him another sour.
Indeed, your cartoon was absolutely appropriate. She did exactly that.
She left him without a name, and you don't appeal to the referee. You kick them back in the head. I'm sorry, as an old school rugby
but actually,
player, the
referee was shit hot. Rona was fabulous last night. I thought even in the first session, she chaired that compared to her pal on the one with that clown Sarwar. She was fantastic. But if I was a BT, I wouldn't let anybody. I'd let Sarwar out all the time, because all he does is shout. And if the interviewer doesn't control it, they get away with murder.
Well,
what about Salmon today then?
Yeah, I mean, their stamina I'm impressed with. They've had 3 days.
Yeah.
Of really hard work.
And he was well briefed on the Spanish Prime Minister's situation, which was...
What I would like to comment on, I watched the BBC debate with Swinney and Lamont. Lamont was quite good.
Yeah.
She was quite good. She talked over Swinney, kept interrupting him as he started, so she broke his flow up. So tactically, she played it quite well.
She did, but that's Swinney.
Brewer, it was a hate fest for Brewer. I don't know what that's about. I mean, there's no way he could have thought he came out of that without total bias. I was really quite disgusted with him because he's done the Andrew Neil thing. You know, I'll ask you a question, then I'll talk over you, then I'll tell you what you should have answered. You know, he does it to everybody, but it was very noticeable that it was Swinney.
The trouble is, he's not as good as Andrew Neil. And the interesting thing is, apropos your point about Brewer's predisposition, and it's spot on. I'll give Andrew Neil this amount of credit. Andrew Neil has stated clearly, if Scotland votes no, Scotland will get shafted. Brewer would never do that because Brewer is biased.
Can somebody explain what was this about? There was Joanne Lamont's reference to would salmon blockade the North Sea again. What was that all about?
That was about the cod war. That was some.
No, I don't think it was.
No.
He said something last
Was
year.
it not about the herring fishing, rather?
I don't know. I didn't understand it either, Stuart, because it
They're
didn't go back
in
to the cod war.
they're in dispute about how much fish.
No, it's Spain.
No, well, that's the Faroes.
The Faroes,
The Faroes have trebled their
Faroes
take.
and Iceland.
And they're arguing it's because the fish swam into their territory. It's not their fault. But
Exactly.
that's what that was about. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sorry, do you seriously think the Spanish are going to give up half of their fishing?
No, they're not, but that's not the point. Willie Rennie was quite, as I said a moment ago, Willie Rennie was good on this. I hate to give Willie Rennie credit for anything, but he wasn't questioning you'll get into the EU. He was questioning at what price. And what he's suggesting is there'll be a whole load of people lining up to say, well, Scotland's desperate now, we've gotten by the soft parts, let's extract this, and this concession. And that is a fair point. EU membership is bullshit. The idea that we would let Bulgaria, Romania and all sorts of people in and wouldn't let Scotland, a 40-year member, retain its membership is complete nonsense. What's the cost? What's the price? You can't negotiate. That's what they try to say.
All right, what about Joanne Lamont today? I mean, she was predictable. I think she got wrong-footed by his first answer.
Yeah.
Because she had to go straight on to her
Script, yeah.
her next question, because his first answer was simply about him being called the president.
Yeah.
And of course the question, the other point that the Senor Rajoy said in his quote was that it was about regions, and of course as far as the pro-independence camp are concerned, Scotland isn't a region. In fact, the majority of Scots don't think of ourselves as a region at all, we're a nation.
No. I mean, I've got a theory about the diplomatic bag being opened by the Spanish police on its way to Gibraltar.
All right.
That was the backhander for the Spanish president to come out with this statement. That's my view.
Very good, I like it.
I find it, I mean, there is only one reason. Why, because of the Gibraltar situation, why would the Spanish president want to help Cameron?
Because of Catalonia, nothing else.
So it's got nothing to do with helping Cameron, it's to do with his own domestic
It's to do with his own domestic.
Catalonia is such a big issue, and because of you've got to bear in mind that in our lifetime Spain was run by Franco, it was a dictatorship.
By the who are these guys?
And these people are still in positions of power.
These guys are in power. That's the party
the
that's
army.
in power.
Yeah,
in
but
Spain.
this is one of the theses that we didn't talk about a minute ago that needs to be really dealt with. That I think Nicola started to exploit last night, and Simon's response to Drew Smith was another perfect example of it. It's all very well you people telling us you're wonderful, loyal, proud Scots. Why do you keep doing Scotland down? Why do you take the side of the Spanish Prime Minister? Why do you... Nicola's question last night about Govan was spot on. Would you support the continuation of the Type 26 contract in Govan, whether we vote yes or no? Alistair, answer that question. And he couldn't answer the question. It was completely foolish. He should have said, of course I would. But both he...
It costs him nothing.
It costs him nothing. It can only cost him aggravation by anybody watching it. Davidson did the same thing and then had to backpedal like hell. But they've got to keep saying, oh, you would like to get rid of the Barnett formula against Scotland. As I said, how can anybody sit there if we vote no and we end up potentially 8 billion worse off than if we became independent, and look the electorate in the eye? I don't know how these people sleep at night.
Fair enough. What about Willie? Does he Did he come off well today?
Well, I mean,
I
his,
think
his question, as Alex said, was actually had substance. Right, okay, you're going to get in the EU, your problem is the negotiating stance you take. But everybody forgets how many Europeans are here. I mean, you look at Leith in Edinburgh, it is full of Spaniards and Polish.
And, and Italians now as well.
Aye, but that won't affect the negotiation, no, right? The
Well,
fact is,
right, what do? You turn around and you say, okay, have your citizens back.
well, yeah, but that's not the answer. What he's trying to portray,
Well,
and
it'd be difficult for him to do.
no, what he's trying to portray is, I know you won't get thrown out of Europe, but you'll end up worse off in Europe than you currently are with the UK. And then Salmon's response to that was perfect. Oh, you mean worse off like Scottish fishermen with their expendable? Or you mean worse off like €1 billion just went down the yin yang to England, Wales and Northern Ireland that was supposed to come
And
to
Scottish
Scotland?
farming.
Give me a break. So there is an answer to it.
Yeah,
But Willie was the best, in my opinion.
yes, of them all. I think I'm with you. In fact, Willie might even scrape over a 4 this week.
It's funny how some backbenchers seem to get priority when it comes to FMQs. Christine Graham comes up very regularly. She must be some power in the background that we're not aware of, because she does. She's strong, obviously.
Well, is it as free as that, Stuart, though? Because I presume the SNP get a number of questions and the SNP government, management, decide which ones are the ones that suit them as backbench questions.
We do tend
They
to
can't control
the
who
same
the backbench comes from, Labour or Tory.
Right.
But I presume that's how it
We
works.
do
And
tend
Neil
to see the
Findlay's-
same faces.
Neil Findlay's another one on the Labour side. He's very left wing compared to most of the Labour leadership. Drew Smith, who got a question, he too is the new golden boy.
Great. Keep asking the questions. What a tosser.
He's the man that those two. We're not surprised. Kenny Gibson brought up the environment formula situation again and again. So really, what we had was Spanish prime ministers not actually saying they'll use a veto on Scotland's membership, but certainly coming out with a negative statement about Scotland's independent future. And then we had kind of the Barnett formula in the second part of the.
Yeah, but that was an own goal. What was missing was the currency question. And the currency question, as we discussed yesterday, theoretically, is their strongest suit. Because nobody can say you won't get into the EU. That's bullshit. What they're trying to say, but I just wonder if they've backed off because he can nail them and say, right, get George Osborne to stand up and say, we will not maintain a sterling union. And he can't.
Well,
And they never mentioned sterling
I
at all.
think it's the mainstream media is becoming the barometer for me.
Sure.
The minute the questions start getting asked of the no campaign,
Yeah.
now that question was asked,
Yeah.
would you really be prepared to have a hole in your balance payments of 40 million? And once they start asking that, the question ceases to have relevance.
Yeah, I know.
That's started happening as of yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, so I think they're going to go with the EU big time.
Well, I think you might be right, but the truth is the EU is a far less potent weapon, in my opinion, for lots of people than the currency. Because I know we've discussed the fact that some people on the Leith Omnibus might not think about currency, but I think it's very easy to frighten people into thinking
You're not going to have the pound.
what's going to come out of the cash machine? What's my pension going to get paid in? And I think they're between a rock and a hard place.
No, I think you're right about the EU. I mean, I personally, I'm pro being in the EU, but I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't break my heart if we were out of it, because.
Well, there's plenty of examples in Europe where they're doing quite well, thank you, without being in it.
Norway for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no. The thing people forget is that Norway paid the same price for not being in the EU.
They have to apply it.
They have to apply all the laws.
Yeah, they have to apply most of the laws. They just don't have a seat at the top table.
They don't have a seat at the top table, and the Spanish fishermen can't come and fish in their waters. That's the difference.
I mean, at the end of the day, with the amount of influence Scotland's actually, in reality, going to have, it's going to be no different in Norway. If Norway was in the EU, do you seriously think they would have any say in it?
No, not particularly. No, I don't have a problem with Norway.
No?
Norway is not in the EU for emotional reasons. No, not economic reasons, because it's paying the money to have the trading relationship. It has to accept the laws.
Well,
but the Spaniards can't come into their fishing waters, which is a big issue to the Norwegians.
The Swedish weren't exactly overwhelmed by the idea either, remember? I mean, was there 2 referendums, 3 referendums?
Oh, yeah, there were, and I've been in a number
No,
of
well,
places.
the Irish too have obviously been equivalent.
You know,
equivalent.
I mean, it's not all
There are
roses.
alternatives, but as was demonstrated yesterday, what the Better Together campaign are attempting to do is expose some of the negotiating positions on a number of points, and you don't negotiate like that. You don't. When asked, what's your plan B for currency? Well, I've got a plan B. I'm not fucking telling you, and I'm not telling anybody else. What's your plan B for the European community?
Yeah, no, sure.
You don't tell anybody.
I still think the day after a yes vote, Salmon's going to get up and say, "Oh, by the way, the Chinese are going to back us in our own currency."
Could be.
I hope.
Right then, let's see if we can get some scores for performances. We'll
Yeah.
start with you, Alex, seeing as you're ahead of the game on that one, I think.
Right. Well, John Lamont, I give 3 to, because I thought, she was her usual self, but
She was wrong-footed straight
she
away.
was wrong-footed straight away. And again, she's not capable of responding to what's said to her. She has to go into question 2 as scripted, so she's crap. I don't disagree with Norrie that the little bit I saw of last night, I couldn't be bothered watching all the way because I've been watching the other channel. I think if you give her an opportunity, she can do better on her feet than she would appear to demonstrate in FMQs. And that's why I don't like Swinney's too nice. As much as I like him as a competent guy doing his job, I don't think he's a great guy head to head in a punch up. So I give her 3. I give Ruth 5 because I think she took the same thesis but did it better. I give Willie Rennie 6 because I think he did it better.
Whoa!
Because he concentrated. Well, he did. The only thing that's worth talking about, in my opinion, in that whole debate today that is actually problematic was
The cost.
at what price.
At what price you
And
entreated
I think
you?
Eck did everything right. And the only thing he didn't mention for me as a member of the Constitutional Commission is he didn't mention the written constitution. And it's one of the things we really need to have. He deployed all of the armory that I've referred to, and certainly came through to me last night in terms of the strategy. The thing they've got to do now is, right, power to the people. We're going to let the people start working on a written constitution. That's what I'd like to see. But anyway, 10.
Oh, 10?
Yeah.
Can I give
I
Phil's
thought it was
report?
presidential.
Oh, right, just a moment. Bill's got a report.
Phil Attridge, who those of you that watch regularly know is normally here, is actually away to see his foreign relatives in England.
So they're Irish.
So his comments: Joanne, FUD-mongering again. Spanish MP didn't say he would use the veto. Stupid questions and arguments. Scotland not being in Europe is moronic. Argument used by Victonites. As sharp as she was on last night's debate, not very. Still reading a script. Shite sound bites. And I've no idea what the last bit is. So it's 3 out of 10 for Joanne from Phil.
All right.
Salmon on form as usual, alluding to Lamont's poor performance previous night's debate and to Nicola's slaughter of Carmichael. Jovial whacking of Ruth Davidson, threatening to set Nicola on her. 9 out of 10 for Salmon.
Oh, well.
Ruth Davidson, old story, nothing new, own goal, stupid Tory, demented, SNP are rank amateurs, off to the Royal Ed with her, 1 out of 10. Willie, right-wing Spaniards in the kiddie. Instead of the kiddies today, go away Willie, 1 out of 10.
Oh.
So I don't think Phil was all that impressed, and I kind of think there's 3 for Joanna's loyalty to the Labour Party.
It certainly is 1 for Ruth. He just can't bring himself, even if she had a good performance, to give her any score of it.
Alex today, yeah, not brilliant. He's just so well briefed and confident on his feet. I can't give him a 10, but I'll give him a 9. Joanne, I was fairly impressed with her last night, tactically, and I'm afraid that's kind of shading my view, I think.
No, I shouldn't have liked it.
I'll give her a 4 because she did get a couple of good ones in. Ruth, well, it's just a shame. I'll give her 1. But quite frankly, what can she say? You know, I mean, she's a Tory.
No, she
Kind
can't
of
say
ripping the
anything.
country to shreds.
Yeah.
You know, she hasn't got a leg to stand on.
No, that's true.
Willie, I'm with you. I thought Willie kind of found a chink in the armour
Yeah.
that should be. Were I in the No campaign, it's what I'd be widening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give Willie a 5.
I see, when nobody's priced the valued the presiding officer, I think she was just a 5 today anyway, to be honest, because she
Yeah.
was just kind of
Too much. Yeah.
just average.
Yeah.
Um,
Agree with that.
Salmond, I've seen him better. He's certainly in control of his brief, and to be honest, it's day 3 of a very high profile for him and Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
I'll give him a 9. I would have given him an 8, but he's had 3 days of it, and they must have done an awful lot of preparation too before they stood up in front of the world's press on Tuesday. Joanne Lamont, oh dear, no, I felt she was well wrong-footed. They chose probably the best subject to attack on, but she stuck to it, just the EU, never brought up anything else. There were other issues that could have been brought up. So I didn't think she did very well. I'll give Joanne 3. She certainly didn't win the arguments. Ruth, I sometimes worry about Ruth. She never lands a glove. 2.
Ooh, that's generous.
Willie, I think I have to agree with you both. I think Willie did better, but he still only gets a 4. He's not even up to average.
Well, we'll start Ruth the 9, who would be a Tory in a Scottish Parliament. Willie, well, Joanne 13. Willie actually beats Joanne this week on 16. So try harder and you might get yourself a few more points. Presiding officer on 20, but she didn't have to do much. Alex 37. That seems high to me, I must be honest.
Yeah, well,
It
I
was
could have
well
easily given him an
prepared.
8, but I thought, well, given that it's his 3rd day of a major
Yeah.
I don't think he
public
put a foot
profile
wrong.
this week.
He didn't put a foot wrong. The trouble is, he's of such a high standard. I
Well,
think
this
you may have seen him
is
better.
the problem. This is the problem
But
with standards.
He didn't. But his answers, his grasp of the brief, his opportunity to take advantage of things that weren't being asked of him, thrown back at him.
Anyway, your loyalty will be noted.
I'm sure. Well, as Peter Murrell knows only too well, I'm quite happy to criticise them when it's appropriate, but when they do a good job, I'm 100% for it.
How good was Nicola Sturgeon last night then?
She was fantastic. She was absolutely superb. You know, she did, as I say, the strategy was clear to me, and it's absolutely spot on. I don't think she had the best opposition, to be fair, because we haven't seen Carmichael.
Don't think we're going to see him again
till
either.
last night. No, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt. He certainly was no improvement on Michael Moore. And in fact, I would say anybody watching it would be a damn sight more sympathetic towards Michael Moore, because Michael Moore at least appeared to be a nice enough bloke, whatever you think of his side. But Mr. I like to tell everybody I'm a bruiser, and goes and becomes the Secretary of State for Portsmouth, really pisses people off. So when he gets
I'm
humped,
sorry.
he gets
So
I-
Nicola did well.
I think Moore, compared to him, was outstanding.
Yeah,
I have to agree, I must have say.
You know,
I have to say.
I
Well,
mean-
look, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, listeners, Blue Peter members, thank you very much for watching, and see you again next week. Goodbye.